Today we're going to talk about something almost no one is checking yet, your partner's seminal microbiome. Not his sperm parameters, his seminal microbiome. What is actually living inside his semen and how it can quietly block your fertility, even when all his standard sperm parameters look fine. I'm Dr. Jane Levesque, and this is the Natural Fertility with Dr. Jane podcast, where we help couples uncover the real reasons behind their fertility struggles. And in this episode, I'm going to go through what seminal microbiome is, why a normal semen analysis doesn't rule out male factor, and then what we're actually finding in clinic when we test the seminal microbiome, and how treating both your microbiomes together can shift cases that have been stuck for years. This is a very new concept, and I want to share it as we bring more awareness to the different types of testing that is available and the pros and the cons. Now, the new concept that I want to share with you is that your fertility is a shared ecosystem between you and your partner. So until we understand his microbiome as well as your microbiome, we're only ever working with half the picture. Here's the problem that we're seeing when couples are coming to us, to our clinic. They have been trying to conceive for a long time. Most of the couples that we work with have been trying to conceive for over a year and 3 to 5 years. And we even have couples who have been struggling for 10 years. They have done a bunch of different testing already. The hormonal testing, the vaginal microbiome, the uterine microbiome, the gut, the immune assessments, all mostly tested on the woman. They've also done a lot of different treatments, the diet, the lifestyle, the supplement stacks. They've even done multiple IUI rounds and IVF rounds. And they still don't have a baby after putting all of this time, energy, money, and effort into their fertility journey. It's really puzzling after putting all of this energy in, why they still don't have a baby, especially when other couples who don't seem to be as healthy as them getting pregnant easily. Now, most men that we see will have several sperm analyses done, and most of them have been told that they are normal. Some will have some yellow flags, but surely those are not enough to struggle for this long, right? The other piece that we see is all of our couples have some kind of underlying health issue. So whether that's the woman struggling with chronic bacterial vaginosis or yeast infections, or either one of the couples, they have fatigue, insomnia, acne, digestive issues, stubborn weight, brain fog, anxiety, depression. Nobody who is struggling with fertility has no symptoms. And this is the correlation that I want to keep making for you all, because I'm so tired of hearing people say, I have unexplained infertility. Oh, by the way, I have insomnia. Oh, by the way, I have IBS, or I have Crohn's disease, or I have severe acne. The symptom that you're experiencing and that's causing the discomfort is likely the reason why you're not able to conceive, because everything is connected. So the problem that I'm seeing is that nobody is connecting the dots for you. You are grasping at straws and you're managing your own case, which is exhausting, especially if you've been trying to conceive for a very long time now. So the default approach, if you will, and the default assumption is most fertility clinics and even most functional doctors, they'll look at the sperm analysis, and if it looks normal, the male factor will be ruled out. So they look at the count, the motility, the morphology, those look great. All right, he is off the hook. But a semen analysis only reports the sperm output. And don't get me wrong, it's still really, really important, but it doesn't tell us anything about the microbial environment that those sperm are living in. And I'm talking about things like the bacteria, the fungi, and all the other organisms that are found in the fluid around the actual sperm. So very few people have heard of the seminal microbiome because it is newer science. Testing has only recently become clinically available and easily available, and it's just not part of standard fertility workups yet. And my hope is that we can change that. We have been in clinic testing it for the last 6 months or so, and it has been very eye-opening because we are seeing infections that are being passed back and forth between partners. We are seeing chronic symptoms that won't resolve because even when we treat one partner, assuming that, okay, if the female has bacterial vaginosis, we'll treat the partner as well, but we don't actually know what's going on in his seminal microbiome. We are just assuming. So essentially, you end up treating blindly, and it's important to treat both partners when we're dealing with infections in the vaginal microbiome or the seminal microbiome for obvious reasons. So we were seeing the results. So what was happening is when we were treating the female, we're not specific enough to the male, and therefore we're seeing negative outcomes. The fertility journey is taking too long, the female is not able to clear the infection, or the miscarriage risk continues to stay high because the partner is not properly treated. So here's been the new lens that we have implemented and have experienced really good results so far in the last 6 months. Remember that your fertility is a shared ecosystem. So the microbiome in the semen and the microbiome in the vagina are not separate planets. You're obviously treating the organisms every time you have sex. So studies now show that the infertile couples share roughly half of the predominant bacterial species. So what lives in his body directly will live in yours and vice versa. So the normal semen analysis doesn't mean that it is a healthy seminal microbiome. So we want to test both. And what we have seen in the disruption in the men with the seminal microbiome, even though their sperm parameters were good, we're seeing damages to the sperm DNA. We see increased oxidative stress and inflammation. We see the pass back and forth between partners. And, these are just not showing up on your standard STI screens or standard labs. So these organisms can sit there for years, literally, which is why couples struggle with infertility for years, because those organisms have been part of the microbiome, either the female or the male, for a really long time. And we do not have any symptoms. It's asymptomatic except the infertility. And if I'm being honest, I never see perfect sperm parameters. I just have not seen that ever. I think there's been one sperm analysis where I looked at it and I was like, that actually looks good out of the hundreds and hundreds of sperm analyses I have looked at. But the men that we have coming in, especially if someone's struggling for 3, 5, 10 years, I'm going to be really picky at what I look at, because sometimes for couples, it's a bunch of yellow flags that add up to a red flag versus there's a big glaring red flag. And one of the couples that I've recently taken on, he had 22% DNA fragmentation, but he's never had a seminal microbiome test, of course, but never a gut analysis, a nutrient analysis, or a methylation panel, like no other testing. They've done a lot of supplements, they've done a lot of diet and lifestyle changing, but not actual testing to see what's causing that DNA fragmentation to be off. And the fertility clinics are like, it's not terrible, it's not great. Optimal should be under 15%, but it's unlikely the reason why you're not getting pregnant / why you've had a couple of miscarriages now. And I think that it is 22%. If I want to improve my odds, I would want to decrease that DNA fragmentation, so we increase the odds. And so far, it's been the female that's getting all the testing and not the male. So when we get his seminal microbiome, I can almost guarantee it that he's going to have a lot of different issues that will come through. So we want to make sure that we're doing thorough testing. And the vaginal microbiome is becoming more and more popularized. So why wouldn't we be testing the seminal microbiome? And this is why I'm recording this podcast, because I think that we should be. So because we now can run the seminal microbiome, here's what it shows, and a good seminal microbiome test should show. STI and STDs. So again, lots of men will have dormant infections that are asymptomatic, except that it's causing infertility. It should show which bacteria and fungi are present. It should show in what amounts. And then it should also show the protective species that are there, or if they're missing. This is really important because the harmful organisms, they will quietly damage sperm that's being passed down to you as the female, and what the baby is going to be, the environment that the embryo is going to be developed in. We also want to match it with what's going on in your vaginal microbiome or with your symptoms. So women who have recurrent bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections, ureaplasma, we want to make sure that we are looking at both men and women, and we're creating a specific treatment protocol for both of you. And essentially, we just want to get away from guessing to a targeted treatment protocol for both partners. So in men, the most current infections that we see that cause infertility and have been labeled as unexplained infertility. Now, if you've been listening to me for a while, you know I don't believe in that, because every time I run these tests, and we run these tests as a clinic, we never see normal results. The most common things that we are seeing, there's ureaplasma, there's enterococcus, there's E. coli, there's streptococcus, there's candida, there's gardnerella, which is associated with chronic BV. And each of these infections are basically associated with poor sperm impact. It impacts the sperm poorly. If we talk about E. coli, for example, it is one of the most damaging seminal pathogens. It will adhere to the sperm surface. It decreases motility of the sperm. It damages the acrosome and the midpiece. So the acrosome is the way that the sperm attaches to the egg, whereas the midpiece is where the energy is coming from to give the energy for the sperm to travel all the way up to the fallopian tube and to fertilize. The Gardnerella is highly associated with DNA fragmentation. It is highly associated in bacterial vaginosis for women, and it is found in 11.4% of subfertile men's semen. That's pretty high if you ask me. The Enterococcus facialis, that's the most prevalent organism, and it's in up to 22% subfertile men's semen. It is higher reactive oxygen species, so oxidative stress, DNA fragmentation, and it definitely doesn't show up on, your standard semen analysis. You have other infections. We definitely, the STI and STDs and things like candida, we want to treat these and have a list of these. So we look at these and refer to these in clinic and read papers to make sure that we stay on top of these, you guys. But all of these organisms in some way, shape, or form will increase oxidative damage in the semen. They will damage the sperm DNA. They do reduce motility and quality of that seminal fluid. And then they're transferred to you during sex. So this is really big. And I think if you are struggling to conceive, this is a quote unquote simple test that you could do. But of course, it should be done alongside other tests and testing the female at the same time, so we can really understand the ecosystem for you guys as a couple and create that optimal environment for conception, for fertilization and implantation, and obviously a healthy pregnancy. So the concept, and I'm just going to keep beating this until we get it, but we need to treat both of you at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to just ping pong organisms back and forth. And I think I'll give you an example in a second, but if we're missing a piece of the couple and then let's do more IVF, let's do another IUI, let's just keep trying and see what happens, it essentially just extends your journey and creates this frustration of I don't know why we can't get pregnant and so can get pregnant. Now, I think that pregnancy is incredible. And the fact that we are all here, sometimes I wonder how we even get here because of how many things have to happen in order for pregnancy to be successful. Like, it's really mind-boggling. But I really encourage my couples to not compare themselves to other people around them, because our journeys are so individual. And comparison, yes, it's a thief of joy, but also it doesn't tend to help us. It's the bitterness that is created in us. That's heaviness that we now have to carry. So I just lean on testing and data to help you understand what's going on so we can get you to the other side. And I have no idea what's going on with other couples that are around you that are eliciting these feelings of jealousy or bitterness or whatever it is. And I'll tell you, I don't see anybody having a good time right now, whether it's during pregnancy or postpartum or infertility, unless they're really, really intentional with what they're doing. So even when someone looks like, oh my God, it's so easy for them. I mean, I see celebrities now posting all the time about postpartum depression and emergency C-sections and preeclampsia and all of this stuff. So story that I want to share is this couple who came to me and they have 6 years of infertility. They had multiple failed IUIs, IVF. I think it was a couple of rounds and they just ended up stopping because it's like, well, I don't want to keep dumping all of this money without feeling like anything is being done. So we did a lot of testing and the seminal microbiome became available. So we tested her vaginal microbiome and it turns out she had candida. And so, of course, we treated both of them. But then when we retested, her candida was still there, which is what triggered me to do the seminal microbiome. And his candida levels were some of the highest candida levels I have ever seen. So in this example, it's really good to see who is the dominant carrier of the infection, if you will, and who we need to treat stronger, which is and who do we need to just help to support, get rid of the quote unquote excess load. So his levels were just so astronomical. We really had to change and push his system a lot harder to clear that candida so then he wasn't constantly reinfecting her. And it's, you know, we're in the phase where we're retesting, but they both feel very different. You could see that they have clearing the infections. They're changing in just how they feel, the sugar that they're craving, brain fog, energy, skin health, libido, all of it. So that's always a really good sign to see that before we see the actual test. So here's my recap for you guys. Your fertility is a shared ecosystem. Until both of you are truly investigated and treated together, you are likely optimizing just half of the equation. So a normal semen analysis does not rule out seminal microbiome issues. They measure two different things. So just because your partner has a normal seminal semen analysis does not mean there's no male factor. We also prefer to test blood work and other parameters to make sure that the sperm is the best that it could be, but the seminal microbiome gives us a lot of insight. The organisms that we find most often in struggling couples are silent in men, so they're missed on standard tests. There's a very real way that they damage the sperm DNA and then disrupt your own microbiome. And we find in clinic that real progress happens when both partners are tested and treated simultaneously because you are each other's environment. So if this episode is landing for you and you're wondering whether your partner's microbiome could be the missing piece, the next step is simple. Just fill out application and the link down below. My team and I will review your application and look at where you are in your journey. If we can help, we'll show you what that looks like. I want to leave you with this. You do not need to keep guessing. There are so many tests available now. When you test instead of guess, you get real answers and real options. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I'm not saying you should be doing all of those tests on your own, but you should be working with practitioners that are setting the standard, that are staying up to date and running these tests on themselves so they know the results and what they show up and how to obviously treat the things that come up. So I hope that this shed some light on your situation and maybe created some curiosity. I hate seeing couples struggle to conceive for 3, 5, 10 years. I think that's really, really tough on the couple and on the woman. So thank you for being here and for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review. It helps get the show in front of more couples who need these conversations. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.